They're dirt, primitive, evolutionary failure. We thought they'd just die.
They're not vulnerable. We can't win.
But we did the impossible.
They'll be back, but this time, we'll wait. The Zinari Empire stretched across thousands of star systems, a relentless tide of conquest that had reduced entire civilizations to ash. To the Zinari, war wasn't just strategy, it was ideology. It was purpose, a sacred cycle of destruction and dominance that proved their evolutionary superiority. They were insectoid, carapaced horrors engineered for combat, bred in vast birthing hives where emotion was filtered out and loyalty to the Empire was coded deep into their DNA. From the glowing core of their pulsating command ship, two overminds conferred, Zalak and Zelak, twin rulers in mind if not body. Their hive-brain interface pulsed with cold data, star maps, life signs, technological assessments, and in the middle of it all, the latest report from their outer scouts, a new planet, a quiet, resource-rich world circling a G-type main sequence star. Zelak clicked his mandibles, amused. A mud ball, he said, watching a holographic projection of Earth rotate slowly above the war table. Primitive bipeds, hairless, no genetic enhancement, no neural networked command structure. They wield crude ballistic weapons and burn liquid fossils for energy. Zelak's four eyes gleamed. Their planet shows early-stage electromagnetic development. They haven't even unified under a single planetary authority, no quantum propulsion, no planetary shields. And yet, he tilted his head, their population density is high, a suitable target for conditioning. They are unworthy of conquest, Zalak said flatly, but perhaps useful for training. He turned to the command node and transmitted the command. Deploy a token force, let the young brood taste blood, equip them with aging warships and reserve stock weaponry. No need to waste prime resources on this exercise. And so, from the warforges of Zinara Prime, a fleet of battered older warships was reactivated. Scars from previous conquests marred their hulls, but their weapons still burned with death. At their helm was Admiral Toro, a creature of vast experience and inflated pride. Toro had led campaigns across the Halen Rift and crushed the crystalline republics of Varnax with ease. To him, Earth was not a battle, it was a formality. When the orders arrived, Toro's mandibles curled into a smug grin. "We are to cull apes," he muttered, his voice resonating through the high frequency. "Very well. Let the brood have their plaything." His flagship, Harbinger of Oblivion, a ship as old as his first campaign, was the largest in the fleet. A floating cathedral of war, its spires bristled with beam cannons and bioplasma emitters. As the rest of the fleet followed, the Zinari armada passed through subspace, emerging at the edge of Earth's solar system with a ripple in the fabric of space-time. Cloaked in darkness, they waited. From the observation deck, Turo stared down at the blue-green sphere below. "Primitive," he hissed. "This will be a slaughter." He activated the fleet-wide comms, his voice booming through the ships. "My brethren, today you taste blood. This world is weak, unworthy, but it will teach you one thing, what it means to be Zinari. Strike without hesitation. Show them no mercy. We are the rightful masters of this galaxy." A chorus of chittering responses echoed through the hive link. The warriors, young and eager, were hungry. The weapon systems came online, humming with energy. Deep in the belly of each ship, drones readied for deployment, their organic components twitching in anticipation. The fleet slipped into low orbit, cloaked, waiting for the command. Back aboard the command ship, overmind Zalak watched from afar. "Let's see if these creatures can scream," he muttered. Earth had no idea what was coming. The Zinari didn't expect a fight. They expected compliance or extinction. And as the final launch sequence began, Admiral Taro allowed himself one last moment of arrogance. "Let this be a lesson in dominance," he said. "One the galaxy will remember as routine." But he didn't know yet. He couldn't know that Earth was not as fragile as it appeared. The stars shifted. Without warning, space twisted near the edge of the solar system, and the Zinari fleet arrived in a burst of silent gravity waves. To any human instruments that could perceive it, it would have looked like a flicker, a momentary ripple in the cosmic background. But the fleet was there, massive and cloaked, a predator in the dark. Dozens of ships, ancient but still deadly, drifted silently toward Earth like shadows cast by a coming storm. From the bridge of the Harbinger of Oblivion, Admiral Taro watched the blue planet turn slowly beneath him. Its oceans shimmered with sunlight. Cities blinked softly on the dark side, fragile, open, blissfully unaware. He sneered. "This is not war," he muttered, antennae twitching. "This is pest control." He turned to his crew, warriors bred for combat, their exoskeletons glistening under red tactical lights. "Ready the fleet. Begin the approach. When we strike, it will be fast, brutal. Leave nothing for salvage." Toro raised his voice, projecting through the fleet's hive link. "My kin, the time has come. Below us lies a species too primitive to comprehend their end. They crawl through the dirt, barely above beasts. Let them learn what it means to face the Zinari." A roar of chittering, buzzing affirmation swept through the command network. Weapons powered up. Drones readied in launch bays. Engines pulsed with anticipation. Then the cloaking fields dropped. To those watching the skies from Earth, it began as a light show. Streaks of brilliance tearing across the upper atmosphere, as if stars were falling. Then came the thunder. Not natural thunder, but the sound of air itself being torn apart. Massive warships descended in formation, blocking out the sun over entire cities. Panic spread instantly. Air raid sirens wailed in cities across the globe. Scrambling jets took to the skies, missile batteries powered up. Command centers lit up with emergency alerts, commanders barking orders, scrambling to piece together what was happening. Within minutes, human forces opened fire. Fighter jets launched missiles, and ground-based systems unleashed salvos of surface-to-air weapons. Explosions bloomed against the dark hulls of the Zinari ships and vanished harmlessly. Shields shimmered, absorbing the impact with barely a flicker. Tanks and artillery followed suit, shells screaming through the sky, futile. The Zinari armor, designed to survive black hole proximity and plasma bombardments, shrugged off every attempt. Then came the counterattack. Beams of searing energy lanced from the Zinari ships, slicing through buildings, vaporizing roads, punching holes in cities. Massive drones, part machine, part organism, descended from the sky and tore through fleeing civilians. Entire districts collapsed in fire and rubble. Skyscrapers crumbled like sandcastles. Satellites winked out as orbital bombardments wiped out Earth's eyes in space. Chaos reigned. In New York, a plasma beam cleaved through Midtown, turning glass and steel into molten slag. In Tokyo, bioplasmic spores detonated in the air, eating through concrete and steel. In Paris, drones herded civilians into the open, then unleashed sonic pulses that shattered bone and organ alike. The Zinari didn't just destroy, they demonstrated power. Admiral Turo watched it all with cold satisfaction. "They scatter like vermin," he said. But far below, hidden beneath mountains, deserts, and deep ocean bunkers, something else stirred. Humanity had not been idle in the years following first contact rumors and strange sightings. They had built in silence, watching the stars, preparing for the worst. In Nevada, doors the size of skyscrapers opened into the earth. Within, mass driver cannons, railguns powered by fusion cores, came online. Designed in secret and assembled beneath layers of misdirection and military silence, they were humanity's answer to the energy war they knew they couldn't win. These weapons didn't fire beams. They hurled dense tungsten slugs at speeds approaching relativistic thresholds. Across the world, hidden batteries emerged from the ground like iron titans. Coordinates locked, calculations ran. The first volley was fired. Turo's command ship shuddered. The lead ship in his right flank, Talon of Unyielding, was struck dead center. One moment it floated untouched, and the next it was gone, replaced by a glowing cloud of twisted debris and shrieking atmosphere. Turo blinked, stunned. Another shot, then another. Zinari ships began to buckle. Their armor, designed to disperse energy, couldn't absorb the sheer kinetic impact. The railgun slugs punched straight through, tearing bulkheads, collapsing internal chambers, rupturing their reactors. "What is this?" Turo bellowed. "Where is this coming from?" His officers scrambled, trying to triangulate the source, but for every lock they achieved, another cannon fired from a new, hidden site. Earth was hitting back, hard. Turo's confidence cracked. This was no longer a one-sided purge. This was a war. Fires burned in orbit. Pieces of Zinari vessels rained down, igniting the skies. Cities lay in ruins, but they were not silent. From the rubble, human resistance emerged. Armored units engaged drones in the streets. aircraft began coordinated strikes. Submarines surfaced and launched payloads designed for extinction. The Zinari still had the upper hand, but they were no longer invincible. On the ground, as civilians fled through burning streets and fighters clashed with Zinari drones overhead, a new hope took root. Humanity was bloodied, but standing, and now they had drawn blood in return. The first strike had begun, but it would not be the last. Admiral Thoreau watched in disbelief as his fleet, his proud, ancient fleet, was torn apart by primitive weapons he had dismissed as obsolete. The Zinari were used to domination, to enemies crumbling before their advance. But Earth was different. These humans, these hairless apes, were fighting back with a fury that made no tactical sense. Their weapons were not elegant, not refined, but they were effective. The mass driver cannons had become the hammer that cracked Zinari arrogance. Designed to combat energy-based threats, their ships were completely unprepared for the brute kinetic force of solid tungsten slugs moving at a fraction of light speed. Entire warships were cored clean through. Some exploded instantly. Others spun out of control, venting atmosphere and wreckage, colliding with their own formation. From every continent, from every hidden military complex, the humans were unleashing hell. Laser arrays, crude but effective, sliced through Zinari drones. Missile batteries retrofitted with nuclear and antimatter warheads detonated in the upper atmosphere, creating massive fireballs that engulfed entire squadrons. Submerged platforms in the Pacific surfaced with rail-mounted cannons that launched city-sized projectiles into low orbit. It wasn't just desperation, it was coordinated retaliation. Taro's control of the battle was slipping. His formations, once tight and synchronized, began to fracture. Warriors, panicking for the first time in their engineered lives, sent frantic signals through the hive net. Drones, untethered from command structures disrupted by Earth's electronic warfare, spun wild and crashed into each other. Entire units failed to adapt. "Regroup," Taro screamed across the command channel, his mandibles clacking with fury. "Retake orbit. Reform assault pattern Sigma 9. But the order came too late. Humanity was no longer reacting. They were hunting. Fighter squadrons began coordinated strikes, distracting and disabling smaller vessels, while ground-based cannons picked them off. Human pilots used outdated jets and repurposed spacecraft loaded with prototype weapons, maneuvering between debris fields to deliver surgical strikes. No artificial intelligence, no bioprogramming, just raw human instinct and years of simulation-based war games made real. In the streets of ruined cities, urban combat raged. Armored divisions rolled through craters, supporting infantry armed with scavenged Zinari weaponry. Civilians became soldiers. Resistance cells coordinated through ad hoc satellite networks, ambushing downed drones and Zinari ground units. Every human death bought time. Every ruined city became a trap. What the Zinari saw as chaos was, to the humans, organized defiance. In orbit, the harbinger of oblivion suffered its first major hit. A tungsten slug sheared through its lower decks, severing power conduits and exposing command chambers to vacuum. Dozens of crew were lost instantly. Taro barely survived, clinging to a support strut as emergency barriers slammed into place. "This cannot be happening," he hissed, his voice trembling for the first time in centuries. They were supposed to break, but they hadn't. Earth's defenders had not only endured, they had adapted. Across the globe, humanity pressed its advantage. The Zinari had numbers and technology, but humans had rage, creativity. They turned their cities into fortresses, their machines into weapons, their grief into fuel. No Zinari strategy could predict the sheer unpredictability of human resolve. Turo, bleeding from a gash in his thorax, made a final attempt to regroup. "We will not fall to vermin," he snarled. "Launch the final assault. Use everything." His command ship lurched forward, damaged but still armed. Several remaining warships joined in a desperate push toward Earth's surface. But by now, the planet's defense grid had adapted. Pulse cannons tracked targets before they could breach atmosphere. New drone fighters, reverse-engineered from Zinari tech, met the incoming ships with synchronized precision. One by one, the remaining Zinari vessels exploded in the upper atmosphere, torn apart by railgun fire, missiles, and sheer overkill. By the time Turo gave the order to retreat, it was too late. His ships were already gone, his command obliterated, his legacy shattered. Earth had not merely survived, it had won. The last Zinari fighter crashed into the Pacific, sending up a plume of steam and fire. Around the world, the skies cleared. Smoke still hung over cities. Fires still raged. Millions were dead, billions displaced. But humanity was still standing. Across every military outpost, command center, and shelter, cheers erupted. Not for the destruction of the enemy, but for the impossible made real. The Zinari had come as gods. They left as wreckage. But amid the celebration, Earth's leaders understood a hard truth. The Zinari had not sent their best. This had not been a full invasion. It was a test, an insult. And Earth had survived only by bleeding for it. They would return. And next time they would come to finish the job. But now the tide had turned. Humanity was no longer prey. They were defenders of their world, armed with stolen fire and righteous fury. The war for Earth had been won, but the war for humanity's future had only just begun. The skies were quiet again. Ash drifted through the air like dark snow, settling over cities reduced to skeletal silhouettes. Smoke curled from shattered buildings. Roads were fractured, blackened by fire and scorched metal. Satellites that once mapped the stars now floated as lifeless husks in orbit. But Earth still turned. Humanity still breathed. They had survived. Across the world, people emerged from bunkers, shelters, ruins. Some blinked at the daylight, others dropped to their knees and wept. The war was over. For now. The Zinari fleet, thought to be unstoppable, had been shattered and cast into Earth's oceans and atmosphere, their corpses littering both land and space. But no one cheered for long, because everyone knew they would return. In the United North Command bunker beneath the Rockies, General Thompson stood before a room of exhausted, blood-stained commanders and scientists. Holograms flickered behind him. Zinari wreckage, casualty reports, energy readings still too advanced to decipher. "We did the impossible," he said, voice raw. "We beat them back. But don't confuse survival with victory. What we faced was a test, a probe. They sent a relic fleet to break us, and we broke them instead. That humiliation won't go unanswered. Silence settled. Then came the voice of President Martinez, face hollowed by sleepless nights and too many eulogies. "Then we make sure we're ready," she said. "Next time we meet them not with hope, but with power." And the work began. Around the planet, ruins became construction sites. Craters were repurposed into foundries. Downed Zinari drones were studied, dismantled, copied. Scientists in every nation worked without pause, racing to reverse engineer weapons that could tip the scale when the real invasion came. In a secret facility deep beneath Greenland's ice, Dr. Emily Carter leaned over the shattered remains of a Zinari reactor core. Her hands trembled as she reached for the core's pulsing shard. "This could be the key," she whispered. "Their power, harnessed by us." Her team stood behind her, battered but alive. They had already developed a prototype energy weapon that turned the tide in orbit. Now they dreamed of something more, fusion of human creativity and alien design. A weapon the Zinari wouldn't expect. Something not bred for war, but built for freedom. Nations that had once postured with suspicion now worked side by side. Old enemies shared tech. Soldiers from once divided countries trained together in joint battalions. It wasn't unity out of trust, it was survival. And survival demanded sacrifice. Children orphaned by the invasion were taken in by strangers. Cities once split by politics now shared water, fuel, power. Humanity, for all its flaws, had found something in the fire, a clarity. The Zinari had underestimated them because they'd seen scattered tribes with outdated weapons. What they hadn't seen was the human spirit, its defiance, its ability to adapt, to fight without logic, to endure without reason. On the far edge of known space, in the bioluminescent throne chamber of the Zinari High Command, Overmind Zalak watched the recorded footage of the failed assault. His 4 eyes flickered with rage. Turo's final moments, his shriek, his broken command ship, the human weapon that split the sky, played on repeat. "They humiliated us," he hissed. Overmind, Zilak's voice was colder. "And they must be extinguished." The Zinari response would be total. A fleet unlike anything humanity had seen was already forming. New ships, elite warriors, weapons designed not just to destroy, but to erase. "We will not underestimate them again," Zilak said. "This time we burn their world until only silence remains." Back on Earth, the sky was beginning to clear. Rebuilt satellites blinked back to life. New weapons were tested in the blackness above. Pilots trained in near-zero gravity. Mass driver cannons were upgraded, and dozens more were being constructed, hidden beneath mountains and oceans. A global defense network was coming online, linked across nations, languages, and ideologies. In a War Council bunker, General Thompson stood before a new generation of soldiers, some barely more than teenagers. Their eyes burned with the memory of fire, of cities lost and families buried. He didn't promise them survival. He promised them a fight. "The Zinari will return," he said. "But so will we. Every time they strike, we'll hit back harder. Every world they've broken, Ours will stand in defiance. Because we are not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting for what it means to be human. And we won't be forgotten. As night fell over a recovering world, lights flickered back on. Not just from generators, but from will, from belief, from purpose. In the ruins of their old world, humanity was building a new one. Not a perfect one, not even a peaceful one, but a strong one. And above them, in the deep dark beyond the stars, something waited. The war for Earth had been won. But the war for humanity's future had only just begun.